Good afternoon. Welcome to the virtual clinic from the Potomac Division. Today we're going to have a general discussion about model railroading. I've got a couple of things to talk about from what I've been doing with my preparations to get into the operations arena. And I know there's some other folks that have some things to talk about. So we'll get started here. So today we're going to talk about my Norfolk Southern Connector Railroad and the preparations I've been doing. This is an update. No, this is not my layout. This is something that Digitrax did for it, not Digitrax, but rather the wonderful PowerPoint program did for me. So that might be Brian Sharon's railroad, but it's not mine, definitely. So my preparations are continuing. Hopefully we're going to have the railroad up in operations in the fall of 2024. Just to update you on a few things from the last session. First of all, the PSX AR auto reverser has been purchased and installed and working fine. The second thing is using a vitamin bottle and that little blue water tower there, it's just in the background from that GP9 in the foreground. Is nothing but a vitamin bottle that I had laying around. Decided to use it, so I modified it a little bit. Last time when y'all saw it, my presentation, it was green in color, but now it's been painted and made some decals using clear decal paper in Word. And we also made a little concrete base, if you will, for it to sit on. So that's a change. And this is all there to hide that tortoise motor that's handling the switch that GP9 is going through at this time. Here's another shot of the tank. I think it came out fairly well. I'm very happy with it. And after I had George Myrick over and we looked at my layout a little bit, and I was having some issues with reversing and such, so looked at it and we decided that maybe I should change the reversing section from being over here on the left-hand side, if you will, and originally this was the reversing section in here, to being in through here. This allows the westbound switch to be able to come down to the staging yard and also take care of this interchange track. If you remember from the last session, this interchange track is going to be used to bring trains from other layouts onto my layout, whether it be Bob Rodriguez or Pete LaGuardia or whomever. They could send stuff over and I could bring cars to represent their railroad and bring it onto my railroad to make deliveries and could send stuff to them. The new double gaps are now here at the end of the wide switch here and here at this location. This is the old and the new. Here's the old section. You see it's fairly short. The new section is coming from here and it's much longer in length than I had before. It's going to allow at least 5-6 cars to get into that reversing section. That wouldn't have happened with the old way we're going to do it. So I cut some double gaps in, and I'd always heard about using some styrene, so I put a piece of styrene plastic in here and glued it in place with some CA, and that's to prevent the sections from expanding and making contact. On the other end of that, though, it's still just cut, and you see we have the gaps. So now that allows us to move on to phase 2, and where I purchased some GP60 Blue Blocks locomotives, and now in the process of doing some decoder installations. I purchased these two for $40 a piece. Being Athearn Blue Box, they are DC locomotives. They are not equipped for DCC, so I had to do a conversion. The locomotives are new. They're in good condition. Found a little rusting on the handrails, but that's removed by just taking some fine steel wool and cleaning the rust. Here's the Southern GP60. and the shell's been removed, and we can see that the chassis itself is the ground, and the ground is connected up through this front part to the headlight assembly and provides the ground to the headlight. And here there are the pickups going to the other set of wheels, and this provides connection and also provides the positive to the bulb. So chassis ground, and we have the positive here, and we've got to isolate this motor from the chassis because this chassis is in contact with the motor, and that's not going to work. So we need to change that. This is a 3-volt bulb, and we're going to take it off, take out this entire assembly, and actually replace these with two 3-volt LEDs, which will be mounted at a different location. We'll also have rear headlights, that will be 3-volt LEDs. This is a close-up, and the bulb is held in place with this little U-type connector here, but the ground is coming across here, and the contact's made that, if you remember that connector piece we saw that was rather lengthy, that's where the positive of the bulb came from. And here's a close-up. This is coming from the ground, and this is providing the power, or the positive, if you will, to the light bulb. So to convert the motor, we have to isolate the motor from the chassis itself. So we're going to take this connector assembly off that connects here, and right behind my thumb here is another point that comes up from the other truck. We're going to remove it to allow access to the motor. Then we're going to take the clip that's on the top side of the motor. We're going to remove it. I want to be very careful about that because there's a spring, and underneath that spring there's a wiper that's held in place. You can see the wipers make contact with the armature here. If we're not careful in taking this spring out, taking this clip out rather, this spring could go anywhere in the world. It's like trying to find a KD spring. It's a little bit bigger, but I didn't want to chase it. I knew about it being there, so I was very careful. I was able to keep it in place. Here we can see the spring with the clip removed, and it's in place there, and it just sits here. The clip holds it in place. So we want to be careful when we do that step. This is the headlight assembly taken out of the locomotive. It's going to be taken out and discarded, and we're going to replace the bulb with LEDs. Here we can see the wiper. Now, if you remember, there was a spring, so this wiper sits down and makes contact with the armature. The spring's in place, then across here would be the clip. So it just gives you an idea. So here we took the motor out. To do that, we had to press on 4 points that stick through the chassis to hold these motor mounts in place. That's what's holding the motor. And with that, we're going to try to get to a clip. Now here, if you remember in the prior slide, if you've taken this clip out, we've taken the spring out, and we've taken the wiper out of there also. So now we're going to turn the motor upside down and do the same thing on the bottom side. And this is the clip that was on the underside. If you remember, the other one was smooth, that was on the top side. The reason these little projections are here is this made contact with the chassis and provided the ground for the motor. So we flipped these, put a smooth one here, and we're going to do that, and then put a piece of electrical tape across it to isolate that particular clip from the chassis itself. So here we've installed the clip that was on the bottom, installed the clip on the top side now. This is the bottom side. The motor mounts are not there right now. It's just put them off to the side to get them out of the way because they get in the way. And we're going to solder an orange wire to this clip to give us the negative side contact for the motor pickup, if you will, since we're not grounding the motor to the chassis any longer. Here you can see the orange wire is in place. Then we used a little bit of flux to make the contacts work here. Here we see the top side now. We've reinstalled the motor, and we've also, can't see it here, but we've installed or soldered a gray wire to there. So we have an orange wire going to the bottom of the motor, and a gray wire to the top of the motor, and that's going to provide power to the motor from our decoder. Getting these shafts, keys lined up and getting them back in, and the keys are just like a 1/16 of an inch raised area of plastic that fits into the slot, and the keys are on the drive shaft coming from the motor, and the other piece has the slot that's going down into the trucks. Then the next thing I did was to put I removed the flat part of these pickups here and put a red wire across there. And eventually we're going to attach another wire that's going to go up, and this is going to be picking up the I think this is the left side. No. Yeah. It is the left side. Yeah. Now take it back. This is the right side. This is the left side. This is the ground. Yeah, this is the positive. So we're putting that so we can have the track pickup power, and I attach another wire here. It'll be a red wire going up to the decoder eventually. And I apologize for jumping around. I'm trying to remember what I did here as I have these. There's an alternative to doing what I did here. The other thing I could have done was taken the trucks out and gotten down to the actual wiper assemblies down here and soldered onto there, which would probably have better contact than up here, but I didn't, well, I don't know how to take the trucks out. I know they can be taken out, but that'd probably be another way to, just another alternative, if you will, to putting these wires. Regardless, we have to have a wire from this truck and this truck to pick up the right side to get the power to the decoder. So now we got that in place. We got the gray wire in place. So now we've got pickups. We've got power for the motor. So theoretically, I could put a straight decoder in and be off and running, but we're going to put LEDs in, so we're going to make some other things to happen here. So I put a Soundtrax economy sound decoder in here. I started with a TSU 2200 diesel decoder, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We had just a little bit of an issue when it came time to put the decoder in the shell, and you can probably surmise there's an issue there. So anyhow, I had this laptop speaker laying around. I'd taken a couple of laptops apart when they stopped working for me, and I'd got them for parts, and I'd always heard these are good speakers. So I said, I'm going to try it. So that's the speaker as we start with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along here and along here to make this smaller. The wires will stay connected because it's just like a baffle space behind here. And that's one of the reasons why this laptop speaker is good, is that it has a baffle with it. And that's a big deal for a sound locomotive. It makes better sound if you have a baffle on the speaker versus just a speaker without a baffle. So we're going to cut this down. And I just used an X-Acto knife to do that. And here's cut down, and I installed some plastic, styrene plastic across the end to seal it off. And of course, it was black, so I painted it black. Nobody's ever going to see it, but I knew it was going to be there. So this is the reduced size speaker with the leads that are already connected to it. And this happens to be an 8-ohm speaker, which most decoders want an 8-ohm speaker. And here it is, once again, cut down. And I think it came out pretty good. And I wanted to reduce the length of the speaker because where I was looking in the locomotive, I had a perfect place right behind the cab that I could put it in there, and it was raised up and get it out of the way. So this is inside the shell. This is the area I'm going to put that speaker in. There's a little recess here. I just filled it in with plastic to make it flat. And I'm going to glue that laptop speaker right in that spot. And there it is. And it's flat with this because I'm going to put the decoder right in here is the plan. And that brings us to the thinking about, well, how wide is this? And I didn't think about that originally, so I'd like to say I bought that other decoder, and I found out that my first learning lesson, before you buy the decoder, measure the inside to see what the width is so the decoder fits in. And why? Well, that's a good question. So inside of that, I found that I've got 0.715 inches inside the inside. I have a set of calipers, so I measured that, and that 2200, well, it didn't fit in there by about, I guess, 5/1000ths of an inch. So I tried taking the wrap off the decoder. It still didn't fit. It had to go in at an angle, and I wanted it flat. So that's the lesson I learned. So the economy was 0.669. It'll fit in there nice and pretty. It says 0.708, but remember, that's after I took the wrap off. With the wrap, it was about 0.72, so it was just too wide. Now, the thing I did find out was if I went to the Soundtrack's decoder site and typed in the decoder number, I could get the width, length, and depth. So I found that out, but like I say, this is a learning experience for me. So there's the 2200 trying to fit up in there, and like I say, it's not flat, and you can see like half a row of electrical tape trying to hold it in place, and all the wires are all over the place. Now, the difference between that TSU 2200 and the economy is the fact the economy is a board decoder, so you have to solder, where this 2200 was a 9-pin, and it also has a 2 leads for a current keeper. But that decoder was 35, 18, and 6 millimeters deep, so it's a big decoder in comparison to the economy. Where the economy was 7 millimeters long, it's a little bit longer, yep, but it's narrower, and it's only 5 millimeters deep. So, yep, silly thing over 1 millimeter, but it made a big difference to me. So I abandoned the 2200 installation, got the Acme decoder, and now I'm going to be soldering things. So here's the other decoder. Like I say, it's a board decoder. Pretty simple. Down below here, these 2 points here are where the motor power is going to come from. Of course, you got your right and left pickups. And along here, this one, these 2 connections here are the speakers. And the other one, this thing's capable of 6 functions, of which I'm only going to use 2. Well, I shouldn't say that because F0s could be the headlights, front and rear, and then we're going to use F1 for the horn. We know that, or F1 for the bell and F2 for the horn. So now I've got to add some other functions. So F3 is going to be one of the ditch lights, and the F4 will be the other ditch light, and we have to do some coordination with that to make that happen. Here's that dynamic brake space that I was talking about. And there's those weights that I had never seen before, but there they were. They were just double-sided tape in place, so I took them out. And I also took some plastic out of here to give some access. I could bring wires in through this. You can't see it well, but there's a hole here that will let wires come up here, and I can get wires back down. So I removed that little bit of plastic there. And that's the speaker sticking back, in case you're wondering what that is. So that gave me the space, and what I'm going to put up here, and you're going to see it in a minute, is I'm going to be putting resistors up here. The LEDs that I picked are 3-volt LEDs. The output from the Soundtrack's decoders that I had are 12 volts, so I had to put a 1.2K resistor in place to knock the voltage down so I didn't blow the LEDs out. So the next thing I did was making my ditch lights. So I've got Detail Associates number 1022 ditch light and stands. That's this gray piece. And it has a bezel that glues onto the front. And you just need to take, well, I took a drill and then reamed it out just a little bit to make sure the LED can be seen. This is an Athearn ditch light replacement that I bought. And I just C8 it in place behind the hole that I made. And this is going to get glued to the chassis, or to the body rather. There's the front side. You can see the hole that I drilled and enlarged it, and you're actually seeing the LED itself. But the nice thing about the ones I purchased was they have about 6 inches of number 30 wire here that you can get to, and it's already pre-stripped, if you will. It's not tinned, but it's pre-stripped. So that's the ditch light. We came off that and I put the resistor in, and I put a piece of shrink wrap across that. There's the number 30 wire coming off. And you put the resistors on the ground side of the LED, according to the instructions shown with the decoder. So I did that. So I've got, as an example, I've got 2 bulbs in the headlights for the front, 2 bulbs for the headlights in the rear. I can combine the grounds and use one resistor. I don't have to have a resistor for each LED. I can do it in that case. For the ditch lights, since they're going to operate separately, I had to put a resistor on each of the ditch light LEDs. So I have a total of 4 resistors I'm going to be using here. So here we are. Nice, neat wiring job, right? This blue is the common. That's the common plus. And in the instructions, they show that this has to be connected. So I ran a blue wire from one end to the other. This white coming up here is going to go to the headlights. I'm just running it and getting it out of the way. But here's the common coming back. So that's what's going on there. And you can see a green, and there's a green, and the green, there's a brown and a yellow. Okay, so the white's the front headlights, the yellow is the rear headlights, the green and the brown are the ditch lights. And the green and yellow wires, as well as these other color wires, are soldered to the resistor, because the other side, the positive side of that LED of the LED is going to the blue wire. That blue wire is common to all the functions. So there she is back together. We've got to the point now that we've got put the handrails on it. And well, yep, I'd used the Athearn replacement balls, 3mm, and I glued them in place in this hugger here. Another lesson: don't move the locomotive till the glue is absolutely dry. Give it time to dry, because I started pulling on the wires, and what happened, Jeff? The darn thing moved. That wasn't supposed to happen. So that's the one thing I got to do, is go back and fix. Got to take that LED out and put another LED in. But I've also made these number boards up with the blue box. This is just nothing but clear plastic. But I went back and made number boards. I just used Microsoft Word. That's an 8-font Arial, and printed them on the white paper decal, and printed them on my LaserJet, and it came out okay. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for me. I'm happy with it. Here's the front side, and I made a little boo-boo there. I'm not perfect. People know that I'm a good rough carpenter, if you will, but I'm not a finished carpenter by any means. Thank God I didn't raise my shingle on being a carpenter. But this morning I finished up the rails in the front, and here's the ditch lights. These ditch lights, I just drilled a hole into the body itself, and there's 30 gauge wires that are coming up to the ditch lights, and you saw these being made earlier. They just get glued in place, and I painted them flat black. I still got to paint the grab rail yellow through here, and this should be green, but I haven't got to that point yet. And this is on the left is a picture that was taken at a rail fest in Manassas back in the 90s. And this is the real 4610, and here's my 4610. I think it came out okay. It's looking pretty good on it. I don't have these figures to put on there, but you might recognize a few of these guys. There's actually a couple of Potomac Division members here, like this guy here. He was much younger then, but that's Bob Rodriguez sitting there, believe it or not. But that's what she looks like, and I still have to, and I'd made this up, but I painted the ditch lights this morning. I've got to program the locomotive, but that's what I've done to this point, and now who wants to go next and talk what they're doing, or if there's any questions?
Ernie, I have a question.
Sure.
What are your handrails made out of? Are they plastic or metal?
They're wire.
Oh, okay.
I'd say they're probably right around 0.030 to 0.039 wire. They came with the kit itself, but no, they weren't already attached. So I had to put those on, and I did use a little bit of CA to put them in place to keep them there, because I found over my experience with one of the other ones was these things want to pop off, and I don't want to do that. So
yeah, I've had constant problems with my Athearn Genesis GP9 locomotives with the I don't know exactly the right term for the special plastic that they use, Delran or something. I can't remember exactly what it's called. They keep popping off, and even though I've tried using CA, they still continue to come off. So I'm thinking about maybe just trying to use a little bit of contact cement to see if they'll stay in place with that.
Yeah. When I installed mine, I went back and I re-drilled the holes just a little bit larger than they were, and that seemed to help me a lot, because I'd done an installation on another Athearn where I'd had that problem, and I tried to use original holes. They're just a little too small, it seems like, and if you do like I do, and I'm trying to use, I try to use a pair of tweezers that don't work, so I use a pair of needle nose pliers, and next thing you know, you're all over the locomotive and scratching paint. Yeah. It's just easier to make the holes a little bit larger and then CA it and stick it back in and let her go. That's what I did anyhow. And I'm not perfect, but that worked for me.
Yeah, I just like to find some way to keep the Delran plastic handrails in place without them coming loose. I might try using some of that etching preparation that you use before you use CA. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. I bought some of that at Home Depot, and I might just try and put that there and let it work a minute or two before I use the CA, and see if that might allow it to hold.
The one thing that I found, and this came from when I was working on the AP for cars, was in terms of an adhesive, I tried a lot of them out there, Polybond. I tried, I don't know, a number of CAs, and I finally ended up with Gorilla Glue gel and a toothpick, and it seemed like that worked pretty good for me. And what I liked about the gel was it gave you about, I guess, maybe 45 seconds to a minute and a half to make some adjustments for if you use CA. Sometimes that's a bond, and where you got it the first time is where it's going to be. And I'm not that perfect on my original settings, so that it's worked well for me, and I'm still using that. As a matter of fact, that's what I used here was the Gorilla Glue gel.
Yeah, I've used the CA gel. I'm not sure what it's called. I don't have it in front of me, because you need something thick enough that you can work with for a little bit, and I guess you understand that as well, because you've been down that road too.
Going through the car's AP, yes, sir. Glued a lot of parts with the styrene.
Ernie, it's Greg. Got a question.
Hey, Greg, go ahead.
If I understand right, you haven't programmed the decoder yet, correct?
Correct. I put it on the track this morning, and for whatever reason, George probably has the answer to this, because he knows my nice, great laptop computer that's got like Windows 8 on it, I think it is, and takes like a year and a half to boot up. But when I was trying to boot JMRI up today, it just didn't want to when I booted up and it was telling me I had a comm problem, but everything else seemed to be there. And I just used the darn thing last week and programmed that other decoder, the 2200, that took it. But today the JMR program just didn't want to load. So I've got to figure it out, because I also know that Microsoft got in there and put an update on it, which George could probably explain that to us. Also about Microsoft in the background is always updating and taking up your RAM space and your performance space and everything else on the computer, and it's just one of them things. So anyhow, yeah.
I was curious how that speaker sounds, and so
It sounds
report
great.
back to us. Oh, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was playing
Okay.
with it this morning, and I mean, I can say this: it will fill the house with sound. And its quality. I mean, I was surprised. Bob Rodriguez had just done some updates on 2 of his locomotives, and he used laptop speakers also. I had purchased what are those, Sugar Cube speakers?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that's going to drive me nuts when I looked at them was the soldering contacts are so dinky that, and the soldering iron that I have, I don't have I have a soldering pencil, but the tip is flat. It's not pointed. And I think that if I was going to try to put the leads onto those Sugar Cube speakers, I'm going to have to touch it with the side. I can't lay it flat because just enough space. But yeah, the sound was really, really great. And I was very, very pleased. And I had done
Nice.
something similar with an Athearn, not an Athearn, Trainmaster GP9, that I put that 2200 in. And that was the first time I'd used a laptop speaker. And you think about the average laptop speakers, they're good. I mean, you're playing music on them. And I've heard some other speakers that you purchase for decoders, and they sound like crap. But some of that is in my opinion, the enclosure, the baffle, and I think the other thing is just whether you want to pay $2.99 or whether you want to pay $15. It's just, in me, I've got all these extra parts laying around, and why not use them up? I mean, I could probably build, I don't know, 100 cars with the amount of styrene plastic I got laying around now with all the extra stuff that I had. So anyhow, yeah, I like it, and it sounded good. And to me, they're small enough that they're actually, that laptop speaker is actually smaller than the 2 Sugar Cubes, because you have to use 2 of those, because the output from the decoders I got from Soundtracks, they're 2-watt output. And if you put a single speaker, you're going to blow the speaker, because the speaker, it tells you have to put 2. That means you have to put them in series.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? If not, who wants to go next? Somebody's got to have something they're working on.
Well, I have a problem with one of my locomotives. It, once again, is an Athearn Genesis GP9. And surprisingly enough, even though I haven't run it that much over the years, one of the headlights has gone out. So I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to replace it. I mean, I still have the instructions that came with the locomotive, and I bought a replacement headlight. But my problem is I've had a stroke, so I only have the use of one arm, and it'd be kind of difficult for me to try and replace that headlight with just one hand. So I'm just wondering, would it ever be possible for me to come to a clinic and bring that along so somebody could help me replace a headlight?
Well, we've never had a clinic like that, a working clinic, but I could
Yeah.
see us doing something like that, where people could bring a project and show it to people, and there's bound to be somebody in the room that would have the expertise to give you an idea, not necessarily do the work for you, but expertise. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm not trying to take all the time up here, but I've got one of those Helgen intermodal cranes, and I purchased the thing like, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it sat in a box in the corner because I never had a place to put it. And when I put my second deck on my my layout during COVID, all of a sudden I had a space to put it, so I opened up the box and there was no instructions. Then I found the gantry crane, the gantry part of it. It rolls back and forth on the crane assembly, and some of the little wheels had popped out of place. I put those back. So when COVID hit, I put it up there, and by golly, it takes a 15-volt DC input. So I went out and got myself an adapter that gets 15 volts DC out of it, and fired her up, and it moved back and forth. It moved sideways. It turned around. It turned the lights on and off. Hit the hoist. The hoist went up. The hoist went down. The hoist didn't do anything. And it's like, okay. So I sent an email off to Helgen. No answer. It's like they don't exist. So I sent a thing to Walthers, and Walthers sent me a very detailed explanation of how to get into where the motor and pulley assemblies are for the hoist. And talking with them, they said it's one of two things. Either A, there's a limit switch, could be engaged, or B, something's happened. Well, fortunately, within the division, we have a good gentleman by the name of Tom Matty. And Tom was able to come over to my house and spent the morning with me, and followed the instructions sent by Walthers, which came from Helgen, and was able to get into that whole thing and got to the pulleys, and we found a strip gear. So can't find parts. So he put it back together, so it looks great. I can move it back and forth sideways. I can spin it around. I just can't take things up and down. But I don't see that being a part of my operation scheme, so it's not a big deal to me. But I do know that there are people who have, well, if you do redo a locomotive and put a new drive in, sometimes you end up with gears. So there might be a gear out there to fit it. It's just trying to find it, but you can't find parts for this crane. They're just not out there, not on eBay or anyplace else. And a lot of the forums that I've been into are saying the same thing. You can't find parts. So I'm probably gonna get Tom back and have him rip that pulley out and see if we can find something that we can put. Otherwise, it's gonna move back and forth, swing and all that. It's just never gonna hoist. It'll go down, but it won't go up.
Hey, Ernie, before Tom comes down again, let me give him, because he's not that far from me, I have a selection of 100 different gears. And I got those because my other hobby is a thing called Spooky Town. They're made by Lomax, and a lot of these Halloween decorations have animation. And I've had to repair a bunch of them, and following YouTube repair videos, I found sources for a variety of different gears used in animation of these small display items. They make them for Christmas and for Halloween. Mine are Halloween. So I've collected a couple different assortments of gears, including a 100 set assortment. And they're just all shapes and kinds and everything. And there might be something he can adapt to your case.
I think the challenge is going to be that this gear is attached to a pulley in some fashion. And of course, you use plastic gears. Why in the world you put a plastic gear into something like that? I don't know why, but that's the world. But I mean, I should have known when I bought this thing at the Dulles show. I seen it there like 2 years in a row, and I finally went up to the dealer and asked him, how much would you take for this? And they said $200, and they were selling for about $500. I said, boy, what a deal. Oh, well. But it looks good sitting up there. It looks great. The lights are on. The lights go on and off. It goes around and around and moves back and forth. It just don't hoist.
Wow. Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, most of the ones I have are either nylon or Delron, and a few metal ones.
Well, I appreciate that offer. Okay. So anybody else have anything they want to chat about?
Hey, Ernie, this is John Wietek. I have a question, it's a general question with bench work. How big should the control panel shelf be? Because I'm working with O-scale trains, and I'm struggling. How big should the shelf be? Over.
Okay, you're talking about a control shell?
Yeah, your transformer sits on it, and you got your switches.
Okay.
The switches there, all that kind of stuff that goes on there.
You know, I've never had any experience with that, and I don't know if I could answer that question on me. I would assume I'll say on my road, for an example, my command station always, it's out of sight. It's on a shelf under the layout. And the only thing I've got exposed are either switches for my switches for my track switches or power switches and my ramp meter. And that's all I've got that's really exposed. Everything else is hidden behind. I did see an article last week where someone had taken a Zephyr and built it into a case on their layout. But John, I don't have a suggestion. I mean, it would take a certain amount of time, sure, for the transformer. And I mean, when I was doing Lionel back in with my dad, I remember the transformers were,
Big.
I don't know, 12 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches. They were humongous things, and I don't know what they are today. I just
They
don't
weighed
have
a
any.
lot
I
too.
have one of those.
Well, my dad
I
had
got
one.
an MTH Z1000 that my brother-in-law gave me, and then I think there's about 4 switches. O-Scale magazine had there's a publication where they talk about bench work and how to build it and go about getting to where you're laying your track, and they had like a little what do they call it? There's a picture on one of the pages where they said you can set up a control panel shelf, and it was about 12 inches by 24 inches, 1 foot by 2 foot. And it's just held down there by arms and kind of mounted underneath your bench work with screws, and it kind of sits, kind of like in front of the bench work, so to speak.
Mhm.
And it's at, if you're sitting down, it'd be at waist level, and you can control everything from there. So maybe I should do something like that.
And I think that's a personal preference kind of thing, I guess it is. And I mean, I'm assuming you have to get to the panel till you're in your trains. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's what the reason why you're putting it out there versus just, I mean, I can think of a multitude of ways to mount it such that it would be out of the way, like put it on shelf drawer brackets, and you can slide in and out. You can get it out when you need it. If not, it gets back onto the layout.
I thought about that.
And
John, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I-
You're in there.
I've been working on, I think I know what you're talking about. And it depends obviously on the size of your transformer and this, how many switch wires or accessory switches you have. But I made a little table and I put it on wheels. And depending on how much room I have, I'm going to put as much as in the front as possible, and then I can push part of it underneath the board. That's one option you might think about, because inevitably you might change something, and if you had to pull it out a little bit, it's just easier to do. And certain things could be deep put underneath for people to walk by and so forth. I don't know what your space requirements are like, but you can pick up wheels at Harbor Freight or on Amazon that you could mount to something like that. And I just built a table with 2x4 legs and mounted it to a piece of plywood. And then I found a very nice top someone was throwing out and mounted that on top. So it looks really nice, but that might give you some help, because the wheels you can really wheel around pretty well. Of course, the wires, limit how much, but you can always push it further in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I can't find anything on YouTube about that. No one seems to want to discuss it. So I thought I'd ask here.
Well, I think the other question will come in. I mean, I don't know, if you're looking at ever doing operations or what, but I mean, if you're doing operations and you have to have aisles, and you want to think about getting stuff out of the aisle, such as space. I mean, I'm like an L1011, and get 2 L1011s in an aisle that's 2 foot wide. That's a tough thing to get by each other. And you don't want those things to be sticking out into the aisle space. So I can appreciate where you're at and trying to build it into the layout. The other question is if you can build it into the into the scenery package, if you will, where you just have an area where you cut out the scenery and there's where it goes, and maybe it gets a cover so you don't see it all the time. I'm just trying to think about different ways of doing it, but I'm not an expert, so I'm not gonna. I can't give you a good answer, John. I'm afraid.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks anyway, Ernie.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea of mounting it on a table that's got wheels on it, so you could push it in and out or underneath the layout if you got room there. Pull it out when you're using it.
Yeah, I think that might be the best idea.
Yeah.
Something that I did in the process, and when I was doing the staging yard, I was looking at having the staging yard portable. So I went over to Harbor Freight, and they have a number of different types of parts carts that have like 4 or 5 inch wheels on them. And what I was thinking about originally was having that, then mounting my bench work on top of that, so I could wheel the staging yard in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had my demonstration board for the scenery AP project, or back up when I put my track, built my switches and all that. I had a demonstration board for that, and I ended up stripping that and making that my staging yard bench work. So I still had the plywood and the other stuff I was going to make, but I got the cart downstairs, and it's turned out to be something that I can push around the room and have my scenery stuff or whatever I'm working on. I've got the things there versus putting it up on the layout and knocking it over. And if you've ever put a container of glue up on something and then you go to move and you knock the thing over, yeah, especially if it's like super glue and you remember, don't put your finger there, but you did it, and those lessons you'll learn. If it's something stupid, I've probably done it at some point, I'm sure. Everything on your workbench always works your way to the front. You can't keep stuff back. It works the way to front. Eventually either it falls in your lap or some spring goes across, the other side of the room or whatever. But yeah.
They say the successful people are successful because they failed more than others.
That's true.
Hey, Ernie,
Go ahead.
if you want, I can show how I made my shelf for the control board.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You should be able to share. I've got the share turned on. Everybody can share. So.
Let me throw it around here.
Oh, there's Lee.
Hey.
Whew.
See if I can get this flipped around so you can look at it instead of me. Doesn't. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
All right. So there's my drawer. And it's just got a couple brackets that are mounted underneath the framework. And a couple brackets.
Oh, yeah, that's what Ernie was saying.
Yeah, that's all it is. And then just everything sits up on top of it. You just got to figure out how much space that you need for it.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, is like how much space based on like size of the transformer, how many switches. I believe I'm going to have 4, and if anything else I need on it. But yeah, Lee, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, and then you were talking about a workbench, rolling workbench. That's a little cart, Harbor Freight, and then I found this drawer cabinet at a swap meets junkyard place for $10. So it's got all the tools on it and rolls around, and then it just slides underneath the roundabout there. And then everything sits on top. I'm doing a lot of scenery work right now, so that's why all the scenery is all sitting on top of it as I roll it around.
But you also have something like that you could have a workbench on there if you wanted to get you can slide around. Man, it's just I think the limitation is
stuff, that's everything's usually sitting on top of it. I have all the tools working up here, and I've got a board in here, and just all the scenery stuff's on it as I roll around and throwing scenery up on stuff right now.
That could probably be a topic in itself, talking about your workbench and what kind of workbench you've got. Just
no
doubt.
Yeah, mine's a disaster right now. I'm bazillion projects all trying to get sorted out.
Well, if I showed you mine, you see all little pieces of wire and drops of solder and everything else all over the place.
Mine looks like.
Yeah, mine was a desk that somebody had listed on Facebook Marketplace for free.
Yeah.
They had it sitting out in this driveway, out on the sidewalk, ready for the dumpster one day. It's like, it was a nice one.
I found the best way to get rid of something is just put it out at the curb and it'll disappear within 10 minutes.
Yep.
It's amazing. I
If
think
you,
people
if you
just,
subscribe to the next door neighbor blog in the neighborhood, you can put out a curb alert, and that lets everybody know who's on next door neighbor that you've got something out there. And that helps to get rid of it quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, we have that too in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have an HOA here. We're about a 70 lot subdivision just over here by Manassas Mall, but we don't have an HOA. I'm thankful for that. But it's just the amount of traffic that goes by the house. And I mean, it's just amazing. Okay, anybody got anything else they want to talk about?
Yeah, Ernie, I've got one.
Go ahead, Lee.
And this might be good one for Bill Mosteller here. So doing a couple cars where I need to use some Archer rivet decals. And so I'm working with raw styrene. So I'm guessing I should probably paint the styrene with a gloss first, something that I can see the rivets, like paint it a light gray primer or even white like the styrene. But I'm thinking probably the paint would be a better surface to stick the Archer rivet decals to or not. I don't know. I wonder if anybody had any experience with that.
Yes, your best bet is to paint it, whether with the primer or the paint, put your decals on, and then clear coat over top of it very lightly.
Yeah,
Well, I can tell you that generally we're doing plastic models. They always recommend putting a gloss coat on underneath your decals.
okay, good. That was my gut reaction there. I just wanted to be sure I wasn't getting a surface that the decals wouldn't like as much as the styrene. But the styrene, I know I've been sanding little bits and things here and there, and I'm thinking I probably have all kinds of little micro porous surface there that the decals would not like. So I need to seal that up then.
Well, I think, that the gloss, I think, is something I've read that, the gloss surface is an important thing. And I'm just thinking to myself, I just read an article where scale coat paints are coming back. I guess whoever bought them is got to put them back out on the market with the same formulas. And I always had real good luck with scale coat paints where they leveled out and give you a very smooth surface. But I think that's a big deal on decaling from what I've seen. And I'm not the expert here, but just what I've read.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
Hey, Ernie,
Hey, Martin.
I can show you the most recently completed car.
Okay.
I think
You're still building cars.
only about one every 3 weeks.
I can think of a couple of people that if I said build a car, they'd kill me. After they went through the car AP, they don't want to build any more cars for a while.
How's that one?
Very nice.
Did you run it through spell check?
Nope, that's the way it's spelled.
How do you say that?
Uintah.
Uintah. Okay.
It's that this is a rarity for me because it's actually a prototype car.
You know what looks very familiar to me too is the Densmore.
It looks like that. It looks like that, but we're a lot later, and this is water because we're out in the desert. We're trucking in water on rail.
Yeah.
And it's the Uintah Railroad, and like I said, I actually have prototype photos to work from, and the fun thing. So it's got a full underbody and all the brake and all that fun stuff that I normally put in there.
And that's wood, right?
That's all wood.
Yeah.
The barrels are it's all individual boards. There's no scribe siding in this.
Mm-hmm.
Underneath the barrel wood are pieces of plumbing. I forgot what size it is, but Home Depot has all kinds of lovely O-scale plumbing.
I can remember when I built a horizontal tank car was out of that 25 projects book that Kalmbach had out in the 70s, and I used 1-inch doweling. Then I put the staving, I glued the staving to that.
Yeah.
And that makes it a lot easier to try to get something round versus trying to put those pieces.
No, this is I've forgotten what size this is. It's either 3x7 or I've forgotten the exact size. But you can, and there's little lids for each barrel, and there's a little handle. You can just barely see the hole right here where there's a handle.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go back other photos.
Martin, why did the prototype have the
There you go.
fire hoses up like that? That's kind of cool looking.
That railroad did that. That was their standard.
Huh. Keeps you from crawling around between the cars, I guess.
Oh, it's kind of an interesting thought. There's
It is.
certain amount of exactly as you said, you're not in between the cars. And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. I wonder why it never caught on anywhere else, but okay, whatever. And I'm fortunate enough, this is a very nice brass casting that actually comes down, runs through the end of the car, does tie into the airline. There's an train line in the car. So it's all tied as one unit. What it doesn't come with is this little bracket.
Okay.
Which is a piece of brass phosphor bronze wire that I had to solder on and bend to this funky little angle. And then you gotta put the brass casting with the little little piece of wire at an angle while you're putting this end through the car, hooking it into the train line, and putting this piece through the floor at an angle. Yeah, the colorful language will ensue.
I hear you there.
Because you go in two different directions that are not complementary to one another too easily. Fortunately, things have a little bit of flex. But yeah, so this goes through here. There's actually a union joint here with some tubing that goes into some 0.32-inch phosphor bronze airline. I think these are 40 thousandths, as I recall.
The vertical rods there. Did they, on the prototype, did they just go through the decking, or did they go into the cross bearers?
They went through the decking, as near as I know.
Just the decking, and they made adjustments at the top just by running the nut down tight. Okay.
Yeah, you just tighten it down.
So it didn't need a turnbuckle or anything. They just kept running the nut down on it.
They didn't have turnbuckles on them.
Yeah.
Strange, Well, I could have put turnbuckles on it just as easy. But getting them for 40 thousandths wire might have been a little tricky. Up to 30 thousandths, I have no problem with turnbuckles. It's when you get a little larger, finding parts get a little more tricky. But yeah, so this is just something kept me out of trouble. Yeah, there you can see. That's what it looks like without paint. And you can see the lids with that little handle. A few seconds with your Dremel and your drum sander, and you've got a handle. Yeah, so that something to keep me out of trouble for a few hours, a couple of weeks. This is actually a couple of weeks.
Yeah, not a few hours for sure.
Well, putting the lids together that was fun.
When you went to paint this, Martin, did you put any sealer on the wood first and then paint it, or just straight paint?
Okay. I've never done that. I've done a kind of primer some days when I really feel like it, or I think it's going to be necessary. But more often than not, it's 2 coats of flow quill and keep moving.
Yeah. What kind of glue did you use?
For which?
The wood.
Mainly carpenter's glue. Okay, so
the yellow carpenter's glue, right?
Yeah, when I'm going wood to wood.
Yeah. Where
it's not end grain, it's carpenter's glue.
That's what I would have used too. I was just curious.
When it's end grain, I use my standard trick, a little bit of goo on the end grain, some medium CA on the other piece, push it together, get it right the first time because you don't get a second chance.
Right.
And it's CA holding the wood onto the plumbing.
Okay. Right.
Everywhere else, it's, if it's wood, it's carpenter's glue. If it's mixed materials, it's usually CA, but if it's end grain wood, it's going to be goo and CA.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. I'm lucky these castings were available. Otherwise, this would have been a lot more painful to make.
I can appreciate that.
When I can make this cast, I mean, getting a brass air hose is easy, but forming this reverse S curve would not be a fun exercise.
That's very interesting, Martin.
Yeah, well, like I said, I build a car about every 3 weeks.
Thank you for sharing.
I've got two reefers and a rail winch car on my bench right now, and a caboose.
So what circa or what decade would this car have been used in essentially?
20s, 30s.
20s to 30s. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking. The prototype's actually narrow gauge.
Okay.
But I decided I want a standard gauge one. Sorry. I don't have narrow gauge track.
Yeah.
I get a fair amount of inspiration from narrow gauge oddities and say, yeah, I'm just going to build that and just scale it over to standard. And photos are this, well, has to be about this proportion difference. Keep moving. It's not that hard. But yeah, so this is all lots and lots of little pieces of wood. Let's see. I'll show you. I'll show you something else here if I can.
Did you use basswood, by the way?
That car is basswood.
Yeah, look like a.
Now, the other car I'm building right now is not. It's basswood and red cedar.
Oh.
Because I got red cedar strip wood.
Mm-hmm.
So when I need wood, let's see, where's share screen? Here it is. I think I'll get some wood.
Is this Pennsylvania?
Yeah, that's where that is this morning. That's about 9 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
And those logs are all about 8-10 feet long. And there's a pile directly behind me. It's about 12-14 feet long. And there's another pile behind the big pile. That's the small stuff. And it's mainly poplar, but those three are black walnut. And these three are white oak. Yeah, we didn't know there was white oak in the mix until we tried to pick it up. And that was like the fifth or sixth load of the day out of the woods. And we found out, when you're dead tired, that's when you're going to find the heaviest piece of wood to try and pick up. I started to pick it up and I couldn't pick it up.
Is this for your fireplace or for some other use?
It'll be my fireplace.
Yeah.
I've got another pile about the same size. Well, no, it's actually a little bigger than this, out at the other end of the property. I just brought this, my son and I just brought this down yesterday. Keeps you out of trouble, keeps you fit.
Mm.
Keeps you from getting too fat in your old age, Got to get outside, get a little exercise. It's much more interesting to get your exercise doing this than at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, and then you can turn around and say, hey, look what I got for all that exercise.
And you don't have to listen to anybody chatting on their cell phone, right?
Nope. But I did learn one thing interesting about this when I did this. My new little battery-powered chainsaw does a heck of a bang-up job.
Wow.
That was all cut with a little 14-inch battery-powered saw.
How many times do you have to recharge it?
3 batteries, never drained all 3.
Okay.
Drained me, but not the batteries. By the time I got the 3rd battery drained, we were both done. That saw, I don't know, I lucked into getting that saw, and I'm greatly impressed by its capabilities, given the amount of money I've put into it, which is next to nothing. And it has returned and performed very, very, very well, to the point where I didn't even bring my gas powered saw.
Trusting.
Well,
Had you used it before?
I used it here in the backyard to cut up some apple and some oak.
So you knew what it could do for you then.
Well, short period of time,
Yeah.
not a whole day long.
Ah, right.
But I only had one. I had two batteries in. I picked up a third battery along the way, and I thought, well, we're just going to take all three and see how far we go. And we ran out of us. We were defeated by the batteries, and I think that's a good thing. Actually, we've got a stopping point built in.
Well, Martin, thank you for sharing your car and your chainsaw with us.
Well,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, if you want to come up and cut wood, I can put you to work. I got 20 acres of trees that need trimming.
I'm a terrible woodchuck. I really am.
Oh,
And Martin, I've generally found whenever I have the urge to get up and go do some exercise, if I wait, the urge goes away.
yeah. Well, I want to maintain my the cute factor on my figure.
Okay.
For as long as possible.
With that said, anybody else have anything else they want to talk about? If not, I've got one other thing I could run by y'all. It's dealing with LocalNet. And fortunately, I've got this subject matter expert here, George, that I've relied on several times now to bail me out when I have something going on. And when I started in where I'm at now, probably around 2002, I purchased Digitrax equipment because we had a good friend in the club that George Hughes, who ran I think it was Spring Haven Shops, yeah. And George offered the club some pretty deep discounts on Digitrax equipment, so I bought my Chief and my throttles and all that good stuff back then. And well, this year seems to be the year when the equipment's beginning to have some issues, and I had been running a Digitrax command station that had done me good for many years, and all of a sudden it stopped putting power onto the Locomet, as George found for me, because my problem was I just couldn't get anything to work properly, it seemed like. And what was happening was the command station was not putting power out to the Loconet, but it had a UR91 that was plugged into the wall, and it was basically powering the Loconet. The only issue I had was that was the only thing in the entire Loconet that was working. Was if I plugged in at that point, nothing else would work. So George came over and spent some time with me and his magnificent toolbox that he can bring with him. And first thing we found was Loconet cables. How many of y'all made Loconet cables up? And Loconet cables there's a secret, if you will. I use the flat wire, and it's a 6-wire affair. But the bottom line is, if you read many places in the Digitrax stuff, it always talks about pin 1 should be the white wire should be pin 1, and with the connector, that 12 connector there, with the tab up, the right side's where that wire should be. And well, lo and behold, I had 3 bad cables that George found with this fantastic tool set. So I went back and changed that, but it didn't fix things. We were able to get that part working, but then it seemed like something else was going on, and we found out that my UR91, for some reason, was plugged into the system. It was corrupting the Loconet. And when I put my DT400 on, it was giving me all kinds of different language, if you will, and just all kinds of different symbols across the top line. You saw the SP in that, but it wasn't working properly. So my UR91 is shot. So what did that do to my layout? Well, that UR91 allowed me to have simplex radio. And now I don't have simplex radio. I can plug in because I fell back to my DCS 100 that once again, it has issues. It don't work on the programming side, but it works on the track power side okay. So it's running my layout currently, but the bottom line is that the UR91 is down. So if with my 3 throttles that I have, or I had, I was simplex or radio, and I have to plug in now. So with that said, I've decided to move forward, and I went to a duplex, and I put a UR93 onto my local net, and purchased a duplex throttle. So now I can start the conversion. And I've also purchased I guess a Digitrax 240X or 240 Plus, which I guess is the 210 and the 240. I went with the 240 because it looked like it had a few more options looking down the line. I figured if I'm going to pay that much for a command station, I'm going to go and get those other options. So the bottom line is that I've lost that simplex, and we had to check the cables. And even though those cables have been in place for years, and the LocoNet had been working fine, I guess as soon as this, either that caused the command station to fail, or the command station itself failure exposed the LocoNet. I don't know which, but anyhow, just you can't trust your cables. When you start having problems, as George did, he started testing cables, and we found the cables, and he comes down also to the correct equipment to make the cables up. I had purchased I guess a crimping device, if you will, for them. And I forget what it was, Lowe's or Home Depot, but it had plastic handles, and the bottom line is they're not worth a crap in making the cables. You need a decent crimper with metal handles to be able to do the necessary compression. So you can look at it. You can pay $14 for the plastic, you can pay $30 for the metal, and in the end, you'll like the metal because you're not replacing connectors every time they don't properly work. And once you use a connector, you can't reuse it. So just a thought there, but getting the system back up was important. And I was having problems with the cables, which George found. Then we found that we had a problem with the command station, and we had the UR91 that went down. So, but we're back up and we're happy again, and I'm thankful George is like 10 minutes away where I can call him, and he usually bails me out and helps me a lot. So anyhow, that's my story, and I'm going to stick to that one. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, Ernie's problem was the weirdest I have ever seen.
Only in Ernie's world.
He was using a DB150 as the command station, which works perfectly fine. But the 150 and the UR91 was the only thing on the LocoNet. The layout worked fine. If you plugged in a UP3 or a 5, and then plugged the throttle into it, the throttle just got noise. It was totally useless. Plug it into the 91, it worked. You take the 91 out of the system and plug the UP3 directly into the command station, nothing on the LocoNet. Plug the command station back into 91, everything worked. So for some reason, the 91 and the BD150 decided to destroy each other the same way. And as Ernie says, it looked like the 91 was powering the LocoNet. We put a command, the 100 command station in, plugged the 91 in, and that gave everything grief. Take the 91 out, plug all the UPs into it, and everything worked fine. So, no idea.
That's an example where having somebody like George, in my case, I know I can give him a call, and he's a great friend, comes over and spends some time with me and got some things straightened out, and helps me solve those problems. He's bailed me out several times now. But earlier we're talking about having the resources, and that's the advantage of having our little sessions here, or knowing the people in our division and knowing our strengths and weaknesses, where we can help each other. And it's a great assist. And Tom Matty was somebody who I was told about it existed, and I've been looking at this crane thing for almost 2 years, and in like 3 weeks I was able to get him over, and he spent the time. I went over it, and he lives over in Durwood, Maryland there, and he came to my house and looked at it and said, "That's the problem," and put it back together, and it worked. At least I knew what the problem was. So I'll try to hoist them. Okay. Okay, anybody have anything else they want to talk about? Well, with that, just some upcoming events that are going to be happening. Our next Hobby Barn thing is on April 13th. Kurt Thompson from the Chesapeake Division is going to come over. One of the MMRs there, and he's going to talk about using Tinkercad. So if you want to see how to use Tinkercad, which is a free CAD program, bring your computer and install the access to Tinkercad, and it's a system that works off the internet. You're not really downloading software, you're just downloading access to it, and he'll show you how to use Tinkercad to make CAD drawings. April 21st, we have Jonathan Jones, who's currently in Saudi Arabia, and will be talking to us from Saudi Arabia on the 21st to talk about his railroad, and it's entitled Portrait of a Railroad. And the other thing, it's not out there, but we have a firm date now of May 4th. We're going to have the Potomac Division's annual meeting, and there will also be a meet associated with that. We're going to put probably 4 clinics on, and hopefully get some layouts in the area to go to. So we've got a meeting room at the Arcola Volunteer Fire Department's annex in Arcola. And those of you that don't know where that's at, it's on the west side of Dulles Airport, between Route 50 and Route 28. And we're in there for about 4 hours, and we have to vacate the room, but they're allowing us to use their room and not require us to pay anything. So that's going to be coming up. You'll see it come up on the website. And that's what I've got for today. And if nobody else has anything else, I appreciate people taking their time on this beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon and sitting around talking. But I think it's been another good session. I think we had some good discussion, and we'll do it again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernie.
All righty. Well, y'all take
Thank you,
care.
Ernie.
And let me shut this recorder off.